The first time I heard them, I thought it was just the wind in the flues. It was late. The manor had gone still except for the slow, steady groan of the old building settling in the frost. I was sweeping the tiles outside the kitchen, and from somewhere deep in the walls came a sound, thin and high, like children crying far away. I stopped. The broom bristles froze against the floor. The sound faded when I listened for it, only to return in short, breathless bursts the moment I moved again. The kitchen maid, Clara, said the pipes always moaned in winter. The cold worked into them, the metal shrank, and the sound had to go somewhere. But it wasn't just moaning. It had shape, pauses between the cries, little sharp intakes of breath, as though the unseen voice was gathering itself to wail again. That night, I lay in my narrow bed under the eaves, and the sound followed me. It came through the plaster in uneven fits, far, then near. Once, I swear it pressed right up against the wall beside my head, as if something inside was crawling, its face level with mine, the crying muffled by only an inch of stone. The next morning, Mrs. Giddens, the housekeeper, sent me to scrub the north passage. Few went there. It was colder than the rest of the manor, with high, narrow windows the size of coffin lids. Dust lay thick on the baseboards, untouched for seasons. The sound came stronger there. I knelt with my bucket, wringing the cloth, and it rose from the skirting boards like steam. Not wind. Not the creak of timber. It was wet, a human wetness, the voice of a child who had been crying so long their throat was raw. I pressed my ear to the wall. Something brushed against the inside, a scrape, faint and deliberate, like fingernails on stone. I startled back and spilled the water. That evening, I asked Clara if any children lived here once. She said, years ago, the family had 2 little ones, a boy and a girl, but they had died before she arrived. Scarlet fever, she thought. Their nursery had been bricked over long before, pipes run through for heating when the new owners came. The days grew colder. The frost rimmed the windows, and still the crying continued. Sometimes it was just one voice, thin and tired. Other times, 2, overlapping, calling for each other, until the sound faded into a breathless whimper. I stopped sweeping at night. I stopped going to the north passage unless I was told. But the voices, they began to move. I would hear them in the scullery while I washed the pans. In the pantry while I stacked the flour sacks. Always muffled, always behind the walls, following the pipes like water would. One night, I could not sleep. The frost had cracked the roof slates and the cold crept in under the eaves. The crying came again, close and clear. I lit a candle and followed it. Down the servants' stairs, through the empty hall, my bare feet silent on the flags. The sound led me to the washroom. The air there was damp and close, my candle guttering. The wall by the far sink was warm. I pressed my hand to it, warmth in winter, where no fire had been. The crying was just beyond, 2 voices now. The girl's was sharper, the boy's weaker, rasping between sobs. I leaned closer. They weren't just crying anymore. They were speaking. I could not make out the words, only the cadence, short, panicked, interrupted by quick gasps. I strained to hear, holding my breath. Something inside the wall knocked. 3 sharp, hollow raps, so close I felt the vibration through my palm. I dropped the candle. It rolled across the tiles, flame still flickering, and in that dim light I saw it, water trickling from the seam where the pipe met the wall. No, not water. Something thicker, darker. It ran in a slow bead down the metal, pooling on the floor. The sound stopped. Not faded, stopped, as if cut by a knife. The room felt suddenly vast and empty. I backed away, leaving the candle where it lay. The next morning, the housekeeper found me pale and feverish in my bed. She said I must have been dreaming, that the washroom wall was as dry as bone. But the servants noticed I avoided certain halls after that. And I noticed something too. The frost was gone from the north windows, even when the rest of the house was rimmed white. And the walls there were still warm to the touch. Some nights, lying awake, I hear it begin again. A distant sob, somewhere in the dark length of the house. I tell myself not to follow it. Not to listen. But the pipes. They carry sound so well.